What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Campfire Convos. Today's episode is going to be the season finale for season 1. That means this episode is going to be just a little bit different, and I'm going to be asking for quite a bit of feedback as we just reflect on season 1 and the conversations that have already been had. So I would really appreciate if you just comment throughout the episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on one of the other platforms. And just trying to make this as mutually beneficial as possible so I can tell as many people's stories as possible and make it entertaining for you. So thank you in advance, and let's jump into it. But before we dive into today's topics, I do want to say we are sitting around the solo stove, sitting on a click chair, and we are drinking some Standing Waves coffee from the local Standing Waves roaster. They are located in the Laurel Highlands, so southwestern Pennsylvania, and they have some pretty good coffee. They are not sponsoring this, but they could be. And if you have a favorite coffee or any other brands that you think would be good sponsors, make sure you tag them in the comments so we can maybe get some stuff rolling and pay for some of these episodes. But little morning coffee cheers. It was a good coffee. So, let's get comfy and talk. So like I said, today we're going to talk about some different things. One of those things is going to be some things that I really liked about this season, and another one of those is going to be some things that I'm going to be changing moving forward. And part of that, one of the changes we are going to have for next season is the posting schedule. So if you would like to stay up to date with that, we're going to announce it at the end of this episode, so make sure you stick around till then. But I do want to start with some things that I really enjoyed with this season. And I think the number one thing that I really enjoyed was just being able to give some of my friends a space to have discussions that we already have, but just a platform to do that. Now, I'm in no way a big YouTuber, at least not yet anyways, fingers crossed that we have a good year. But the platform that I have and the audience that I have is a very supportive audience. So I get some good feedback on different things, whether you like it or dislike it, and it brings attention to the people who we've had on, and that doesn't always translate necessarily into new followers for them, or it doesn't necessarily benefit them in the way of growth on a platform, but it gives them the opportunity to touch different people's lives in a way that they might not have been able to do necessarily without it. And that's pretty much the main reason that I started this in the first place. If you guys listened to all the episodes, I talked about a time when I was approached at just a random local bar that I hadn't been to very much, and by some people that I went to high school with who I haven't seen in 10 plus years. And the conversation that we had really opened my eyes to the amount of impact that could be had without having such a big audience. So giving some, friends, and ideally some family in the future, the opportunity to be in front of people and to tell their stories and inspire other people how they inspire me is a really cool little side effect of this whole thing. And I think we'll go back and forth on the goods and bads here, because I think one of the challenges that brought up was having people on the podcast every episode. And we got creative a couple times and did some different things. So we did the ChatGPT and got creative with some guests we had, but the consistency of recording these episodes and making sure that they're up to par as far as quality and overall content became a little bit of a challenge when we're looking at bringing in people. Trying to do one episode every other week I thought would be a solid pace and give me time to kind of gather everything and then move forward. But it turned out to be a little harder than anticipated. And I think a lot of that has to do with the winter weather kind of slows us down a little bit. A lot of the people that I interact with a lot don't move around too much in the winter, and I'm just as bad. I'm pretty much snowboarding or inside when it comes to winter weather. So that was definitely came into play for just the scheduling and getting the content out. So I think for moving forward, my hope is to have essentially 2 different sets for the podcast, and that is more of one of the opportunities I think moving forward. And I definitely want to keep a set like this where it's simple, it's mobile. I can take it to people, take it when I'm camping. If I run into someone who I feel would be a good fit for the podcast, I can just have an episode. Because even just last year, when I really dove back into camping, or more solo camping rather, I ran into people at campsites that I'd sit down and have a 3-hour conversation with. And yeah, it might be my first time meeting them, but I mean, those are conversations that I think those are almost the conversations that can give you the most insight, because if I don't know you, I'm taking a lot more from that conversation than if I've known you forever. And that's just because typically if you know someone forever, you have a lot of those conversations in maybe miniature forms, but it's just a little bit different. And if you're meeting someone who's completely out of your friend group, completely out of your family or your culture even, it leaves a lot of room for improvement there. Not improvement, but growth. So I think having a mobile set is going to be one of the goals, and as well as having a more like permanent set where I can make it just a little bit prettier, make it a little more enticing for some different brands to support the channel. And that's something I'm definitely looking forward to doing, is reaching out to some brands and trying to get that kind of financial support for the channel. I love doing this. I want to get as many people on this as I possibly can, and realistically, it will be significantly easier if it might even be the only way to make it possible at this point, but is going to be to have some sponsors who can help cover some costs of these episodes so we can reach more people. So having a mobile set, having a little bit more aesthetic set for some different brands is going to be one of the opportunities for moving forward. And we also are trying a little bit of a different fuel source for the fire pit today. So if you see me move here at any point, or if you hear me maybe yip a little bit, this fire is getting pretty toasty already. But yeah, so if you guys know any brands that you think would be a good fit, I'm looking for different coffee brands. We do the toast at the end, so some different whiskeys, bourbons, or really any alcohol. I just think there's something to be said about sitting around a fire, having a drink, and relaxing a little bit. So that, and I mean, if you're at night, I like to have a little bit of an alcoholic beverage, and if it's in the morning, I like to start my day with some coffee. So figured those 2 industries, I guess, would be the most fitting. And then obviously we have to have the fire somewhere and sit on something, so any ideas for those as well would be much appreciated. But enough about that stuff. I do want to jump back into some different topics, and I'm going to cheat real quick and pull it up on my phone, because I do have a list of the questions I wanted to cover. Next question I had was what I didn't expect. And I think probably the biggest surprise to me was the amount of people, but also who those people were made up of as far as support for the channel. I expected some of my friends and family to, give the podcast a listen. I kind of assumed that would fall off kind of quick, like some of the stuff does, because, I mean, realistically, my content isn't targeted 100% to all of my friends and family. It has to be targeted to the audience that I'm trying to reach. But there's a lot of people who came out that, I mean, I know are outdoorsy people and they have the life experiences, and I think the stories are what really brought them into it. But I can't tell you how many times I was out somewhere with, maybe grabbing a bite to eat with my parents or having a drink down at the local little club, and someone had mentioned like, hey, I watched your episode and I thought it was really cool, or I have a couple people who ask pretty consistently to be on it. And if you're listening, you know who you are, and I'd like to have you on it, but I still think I might need to get my audience a little more prepared for a couple of you guys, because it might scare them away. I don't know. We'll have to figure out some topics to talk about, but the support from all of the people who have been supporting has been very surprising and almost a little overwhelming with how much they've been supporting. So that's been a really cool realization of having the support system that I do. So that's one big takeaway for this season. And another one was kind of the content that people were looking to see. I started out, we did some gear reviews and recommendations of different gear, but it definitely turned into more of a storytelling kind of thing. And we'll definitely leave space for talking about gear. If I have someone on, they just got a new piece of gear and they want to talk about it, we're going to chit chat about it, because that's what the fire is. We talk about whatever comes up. And yes, we can lead that some different directions, but for the most part, we're just letting it flow. And I think that's part of the reason that everything comes out authentic, is because it really is. We're not scripting stuff, we're just flowing. So unexpected to have some of the things we did, and unexpected that we took the direction change that we did. And I wouldn't change either of those things. They've been pretty awesome. I feel like it's a pretty quick answer for the next question, but I don't want to ramble on that one too much. Next is why this steel feels worth it. And I think I kind of touched on this already. It's just to have the outpouring of support for the podcast, as well as being able to give people that I care about a platform to share their stuff, it's why I started in this. I want to help people tell their stories. I want to help people get outside. I want to encourage people to take the leap. So all of those things just happen to fall into place at the right time in front of the right people. And it was another one of those unexpected things, but it worked out just so that I really can't see myself stopping this. I want to continue to make these episodes, and ideally, if we get to a point where I can make more episodes, that'd be great. Maybe we step back and make fewer episodes, but a little more produced. The options are endless, but at the end of the day, I definitely would love to keep this rolling and get some important people in my life on here, and make some new friends and get them on here, and just see where it goes. So that would be my why we should keep it rolling. And I think it also stands to show people who want to have a podcast, and whether it's in the outdoor space or any space, really doesn't matter what your industry is. Just getting out and talking to people that you care about stuff that you care about it's pretty great. So I highly recommend it. Doesn't have to be produced, doesn't have to be fancy. I have a ton of extra gear that I could bring out and use for this stuff, but I'd much rather set up one camera, maybe two, throw a couple mics on, and sit around the campfire like I actually would sit around the campfire talking to friends. So we want to change some things, but not get too far away from that core, and we'll see where it goes. Next question is the conversations I keep thinking about. And all of the conversations kind of replay in my head every so often. it was kind of surprising how much of the same general topics came up in conversation, or at least like the core values that connected those conversations. And I do think that I think that happens because the people that I've had on the show are people that I relate to in a certain way, and we have either the same values or experiences to a certain level, or have at least some shared, some shared background, I guess. And while I definitely want to have that and give the people that I know the platform, I definitely also want to challenge myself to have some conversations with people that I don't know, or people whose values I don't necessarily align with, and use that as an opportunity for both or either of us to just grow and have those conversations that maybe we don't necessarily want to have all the time, or talk about the things that are a little more difficult to talk about. But if we don't have those conversations, then it makes it a little harder to figure out our path, I think. So challenge each other, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And but specifically conversations that pop back up. The everything happens for a reason theme it popped up like 4 different episodes. It's something that I believe in wholeheartedly, and it being agreed upon with other people in my life really shows how accurate it is, I guess. And it being so, it was interesting to see how many people thought the same way, or maybe not the same exact wording, but thought of the same concept but in a slightly different way, or how they used that to get through different things. So it was cool to be able to share that with more people and see the overlap and kind of see how it potentially relates with even more people out there than I ever thought. So that was one topic that came up a lot that I think about quite a bit. And then some of the religious topics that we talked about with Stan specifically, those come to mind quite a bit. Stan is one of my good buddies. He doesn't live too close, so I don't get to talk to him too much. But it seems like every time I talk to him, we go in quite a crazy direction for the conversation. Not crazy in any kind of bad way, but just you never know where it's going to go after it starts, and the life experience that we both have to bring to the table and to the conversation. And I think we disagree on a lot of things, but the way that we have those conversations that we disagree on is pretty unique to a lot of the conversations I'm used to, where if you don't agree, then we're not talking about it. Whereas with Stan, we don't agree, so we're going to talk about it more, so we can understand where the other person is coming from. So that comes to mind a lot, and just the ability to be able to have those types of conversations a little bit better on my end, and to maybe encourage other people to do the same. So those are 2 things that come to mind. Let me think for 1 second and take a little sip of my coffee. Maybe something else will pop in my head. This fire is getting pretty close to me today. Definitely a bigger flame than we normally have. If you're listening, I guess you just got to take my word for it. It's much bigger than normal. I'm actually burning the fire pit how you're supposed to burn it, though. So we got the secondary burn going on, and the flame is out the top, not just kind of smoldering like it tends to do when you're not burning it correctly in these things. But next thing that comes to mind. I think one of the quotes that comes to mind that I don't want to say I oppose it, but it's something I didn't necessarily agree with until I heard it said, and then heard it being supported in the way that it was supported. And that was by Tyler when he said about not pushing too hard. And I grew up a very competitive person with a lot of, like, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish it. But I've been fortunate enough to not have certain things happen to where I have to back off. You know, I haven't had too many physical accidents to where I have to let off the gas and slow my body down to let it heal, to get it back to where it is. And there's been times where, you know, I've had to do physical therapy and you have to ease back into certain things, but I've always been blessed to be able to jump right back into whatever it is for the most part. And I put a lot of credit in that to the just work harder mentality where, you know, okay, if I do my physical therapy and I do it to the extreme, then I can overcome this injury faster. And I don't know if I just happened to do it by accident in a way where I didn't overdo it to the point where I hurt myself, or maybe I just knew, or my body can tell to back off when it's supposed to. I don't know what the real reason is, but hearing someone who pushed too hard, was set back a little bit more, and then had to readjust that was an interesting perspective for me, and definitely something that I took away from one of the conversations that I didn't have before. So, Tyler, if you're listening, I appreciate you for sharing that. And yeah, I think those are some of my main takeaways from the conversations that have been had so far. But I think it is time for a word from today's sponsors. We don't have any sponsors yet today, but we could. And if we did, now would be when you're listening to how awesome their product are, or maybe their service. I don't know, but if you would like to get a shameless plug here, then reach out. And if you are someone who really likes a brand, let me know what brand they are and maybe a contact person to reach. And maybe we can set something up, make it work. Pay for some of these episodes, go to some cool places, have some cool conversations, and touch some people's lives. So this is my not sponsored post. Okay, next question. And another sip of coffee, because this coffee is good. And my cup is so close to the fire, it's actually getting more hot. Ooh, the next thing to reflect on is building something without a script. And this one is either going to be really quick or really long-winded. Haven't really thought these answers through yet, so thus unscripted. Let's get comfy again. So with the last couple episodes, there's been some bullet points, right? Like there's been questions to hit on and move forward with. And those are episodes where I don't have someone else to talk to. But for the most part, if I have a guest, I mentally know the things that I want to talk to them about, and I've asked them different things that they care about so that I can have conversations in that direction. But we're not writing a script to the point where it's like, oh, I'm going to say this, you're going to respond this way, and then I'll be able to respond this way. And I'm not even asking relatively leading questions in that way where it's like, oh, do you want to talk about, or I might ask what you want to talk about this specific topic, but it's not how do you want to talk about this, or is this your opinion on it? It's tell me about it. And the conversation flows from there, but it's not, I do my best to keep it as authentic as possible to a real conversation where I have no idea what they're going to say, they have no idea what I'm going to say, and being able to adjust and flow from there keeps everything so much more authentic in my opinion, but it makes it pretty difficult. And there's a lot of times where I'll have someone on the podcast who's never been in front of a camera before, or if they have, it hasn't been in this kind of situation. So I think being unscripted allows a lot of freedom to do that, but not a lot of freedom to do that. It makes it easier to do that. It makes it easier to be here, sitting next to someone, looking them in the eye, and not worrying about the camera. So, excuse me. If I have a guest, if you watch the episodes, and I know this is a podcast, so some of you are probably just listening, but if you have a chance to watch one of them, pay attention to how the conversation goes. Because I don't look at the camera. I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to my guest, and we are talking to you guys indirectly. It's not, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm not trying to entertain. There might be some times with certain guests I know I can break the fourth wall and look directly into the camera and say shameless plug and do all of the fun stuff. But that kind of comes with understanding my guests. Like, if I know that I draw attention to the camera, that's going to mess my guest up, so where they're paying attention to it now, I try to avoid that if at all possible. Or if I do that and I see that it not necessarily shakes them, but like throws them off just a little bit, then I try to be a little more direct with eye contact, or switch the topic to something where they're more comfortable, so we get back into that flow. So not being scripted allows that to happen a lot easier, because they're not thinking of what they're going to say next or what they're supposed to say next. They're just thinking of the conversation that we always have and that people have every day. I mean, you're going to have conversations sitting around talking to your friends, talking to your family, talking to a random stranger on the bus. You're going to have different conversations. So you just kind of flow. And I link that back to being the most authentic. Is it necessarily always the most authentic? No, there's going to be people that show up on the podcast and know exactly what they want to say and touch on topics that they want to touch on. But they're going to ask me things that I'm not preparing for it. I'm not going to go do a bunch of research on whatever topic they're going to bring up. If I don't know about it, I want to not know about it and learn from them. And I'm definitely not going to be shy about, I have no idea what you're talking about, or this is something that I haven't done my research in to be able to support. This is my stance, but I can't support it in the way that I feel like I should. So I'll give you what I know. You can give me what you know. We can switch it. We can understand it in that way. But it's going to be as authentic, in my opinion, as possible. And that is super important to me to keep. I don't want it to be scripted to where it's like, oh, this is the question, this is my answer, say it like this, tell people this, look at the camera, laugh, ha ha ha. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. And if that's the kind of podcast you're looking for, I don't know what to tell you. Thanks for watching this far, but it's probably not going to be something you enjoy too much, because I have no idea where it's going, so you're definitely not going to have any idea where it's going. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think different people are looking for different things, and selecting the audience and sticking to it is kind of part of the whole shtick with this. Is, hey, you might like us, you might hate us. I hope you come back, but if you don't, it's been fun and I appreciate it. So those are just the little takeaways, I guess, with it, and the main reasons that it's unscripted. The funny thing is a lot of the unscripted stuff that happens is because of the environment. I had an episode where I'm sitting out here recording, and there's a little dirt bike track right behind us, and I had some kids come down on some dirt bikes and start ripping through. Makes it a little loud. So asked the kids, hey, can you just go away for a little bit and give us some time? And they thought it was awesome that we're shooting a podcast. So they asked for the channel and all this stuff, and then they just kind of go off. And then I told them an hour. They came back just around an hour, and I heard them as they're coming down the hill. They hit the kill switch, they coasted down, and then they sat behind me and watched just off camera for like 20 minutes. And then eventually, we went a little over, so eventually they got back on and took off up over the hill, but they left. And adjusting to those things is also kind of the fun part, is, talking to the guests and be like, oh, those kids are back there, they're having fun, they're doing whatever, or, the dog's barking in the background, or there's some not wild turkeys, there's some captive turkeys, I guess. The house down the road raises turkeys, or has them there all the time, so they'll be gobbling over there. And there's just so many different things like that happen, but those are things that happen when you're camping in almost anywhere. Like, yeah, if you're out west, You might have a little more secluded campground where you're not having cars zip by all the time, but that's not where everyone camps. A lot of people camp at least somewhere close to different things, so having those sounds and having the atmosphere just kind of flow like that was also really important to me as far as keeping it unscripted and keeping it authentic. So like right now, I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear it, but there's a bus that's driving past, and it's 150, 200 yards away driving past, but it's kind of loud, and it's very possible that it messes up the flow of it, or maybe you don't like the sound of it, but that's what we got. And those are, to me, I think those are important things to keep in as much as possible. Like there's gonna be certain things where like, oh, that's gonna be a loud or a very obnoxious noise, so I try not to include it just for, viewer/listener ears sake, where, oh, hey, that's a really loud sound, you probably don't want that. But it just adds to the unscriptedness of everything. Like, yeah, it's gonna throw me off. Bring it back, keep talking, and see where we adjust. But I think that's it for why we keep it unscripted. And I think you guys at this point probably also understand why I keep it unscripted. I would like to know your input on that though. Like, what do you think? Does it seem to add authenticity to it? Does it seem to, the ones that are more scripted, does it seem to take away from it? What do you see with the different episodes, or what are you hearing different? So if you could, comment it down below, or wherever you're listening, let me know. Or also, shameless plug, you're welcome to follow me on any of my social medias. I do have Campfire Convos specifically, or specific pages rather, Instagram, TikTok, and all of the fun stuff, a Facebook page, all of that stuff. So if you want to talk on there, you're welcome to as well. But I think I got one more question to cover, and then we'll be wrapping up this thing and talking about when the next episode's coming out. My fire is almost out here. Maybe poke it a little bit. I think I'm allowed to take a little fire poke break here, huh? That's hot. So if you're just listening, I just poked the fire 2 times, got a little flame going, and almost burnt my hand. Okay, so the next thing is basically just why I decided to stop at episode 11. And this is going to be a full disclosure kind of answer. Main answer is I have been struggling to keep to the posting schedule. I've had some guests who were supposed to be here who were not able to. So I'd like to give myself some time to get a little bit of backlog so that I can have the episodes launching at the same time every other week. And it's reliable, you know what to expect, and you can come here, listen, and we can grow everything together and just be more reliable. Another thing, if you know me personally, you definitely know this, but if you don't yet, then here you go. I really like double numbers. 33 has been my number forever, and I am really just into just numbers and the signs behind them and all the fun stuff. But 11 is also a very significant number for a lot of stuff, and because of that, I thought episode 11 would be a good way to, or a good number to add, a good number to end the season on. So season 1, 11 episodes, and it gives us a place to stop and start to grow. So season 1, I was kind of banking on everything being a learning process. So I've already learned a ton. We covered some of the things. We started out doing gear and tips, and we changed into stories and life advice. And I'm still plan on being a mix of all those things, but just having a better understanding of those things prior to the episode being recorded, I think is a little bit more important. So if you come in thinking it's going to be all gear, then, or I don't know if I said that correctly, but more so, I almost don't want you to know what to expect. Like, I want there to be a little bit of everything, because I don't know what's going to be said in the episode before recording it. And I think that adds to the fun of the conversation, to see where it's going to go, to know that you don't know what to expect. I don't want to become predictable. I want to talk about things that maybe some guy who's sitting in the woods with a couple hundred subscribers on YouTube shouldn't be talking about. Or maybe this turns into a little bit of a bigger thing, and now we're talking about simple things that you wouldn't expect someone with a big following or whatever it might be. I want to keep it as unpredictable as possible while still keeping to the core values of the podcast. So stopping at this point lets me kind of regather all of those thoughts, look at all of the information from all of the viewers and the supporters, and put something together. And it also really lets me figure out how to make this more sustainable, whether it be traveling to different places and making different podcasts with different people, or setting up more of a stage setup, or more permanent, where we can have the fire, have a couple chairs, have some nice background, different lighting options, all of the fun stuff, just to make it a little bit more produced. I know this is a podcast. The visuals don't matter as much as the audio, which I hope that you guys have also enjoyed the audio to this point. I've had some windy days. I try to keep the background noise in as much as possible. I love the sound of the fire crackling or the birds chirping. So those are things that I would like to keep, but I also would love feedback. Hey, maybe cut out the bus that drives past because it's too loud, or it's not as an outdoorsy sound as possible, or the people cutting grass in the background. What are your guys' thoughts on those kinds of things? Because they're things that I leave in there because, I think it keeps it authentic, but I also want your experience to be as positive as possible. So if it's something that's going to be really distracting, or maybe it's really loud in your car, let me know so I can make sure that I'm addressing those things. This entire process has been a growing thing, and I've learned a lot, and I've messed up a lot, and it's given me a lot to look at, a lot to change, and a lot to grow. But it's been such an amazing experience to have with some amazing people, and I do know of a few guests that I have for season 2, and it's going to be a lot more. I think there's going to be a lot more vulnerable conversations with some people, which is terrifying, if we're being honest. It's not something that I really like doing. It's something I've been encouraged to do a little bit more of, just to be more authentic, because I really am, for the most part, I don't mind being vulnerable with people that I talk to or that I care about. If you're going through something, I try to relate to you by being vulnerable in the way that I also have been dealing with some stuff. And obviously there's a way you have to go about that when you're having conversations, but that's not a topic for now. But just being able to be more vulnerable with some people who might also not typically be vulnerable, I think is going to be a pretty interesting experience. So stick around for that, I guess. And then for sponsors and stuff, I'm going to try to figure out a way to get some money flowing into the podcast so I can make this experience better for you guys overall, with the sound quality, the look, and the overall result. Just the people I can have, the frequency in which I can have them, all of that stuff. I need to figure out how to make it a little bit more profitable and realistic. So I guess that brings us into our reveal of the next season. And that is going to be Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Season 2, Episode 1 will be out at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we are going to switch to a Wednesday launch day. Try to break up your week a little bit, give you a new podcast to listen to, and see how it affects the posting schedule and the shooting schedule and all that stuff. I think a lot of the trips that I do with new people are on weekends, so it gives me the opportunity to go on a trip, enjoy the trip in addition to shooting the content, and it doesn't take away from the travel days or the last day with people or whatever. So that'll be something that's, I think, will be beneficial for both of us, the listener and me producing everything, I guess. So put in your calendars, May 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next episode of Campfire Convos will be out, and we'll bring this one to an end. I had some different toasts written down, but I think I'm just gonna let this one fly right off the top. And it's with coffee, so I don't know if it fully counts, but we're gonna have to count it. Take a little pre-toast sip here. The pre-toast sip was pretty much just to buy myself a little more time to think about what I want to say. Cheers to the campfires and all the conversations around them. Hopefully a year full of many more of both. And thank you to everyone who's shown support, whether it be watching, listening, helping shoot, being a guest, resharing, posting, anything. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I will see you May 21st, 2025 at 7 p.m. But until then, I appreciate you.